Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to June on the Range in its final week. June on the Range 2025, Michael K. Vaughan's beloved BookTube event where we read Westerns in the month of June. I've been having a blast. I've been having almost entirely great experiences, or really good experiences, reading Westerns. And just recently I read an ace double, one of these things that has a short novel with its own cover, and you read through it, and then you flip the book over, the same book, and you have a different original cover. The back cover is an original front cover of a second short novel, usually but not always by a different writer. And I just recently read one of those, and I really enjoyed it. It was, not only did I enjoy the novels, one more than the other, but not only did I enjoy the novels, but I enjoyed the fun old-time experience of reading an ace double, of just having two books there in your hand. So I went for another ace double. Vulture Valley by Tom West, who I don't think I've ever read before, and of course Tom West strikes me as a pseudonym. Probably he's another example of the type that I see all the time on June on the Range, of a guy writing under a pseudonym and having someone who's written 100 or 200 books. And then the other one is The Sidewinders by John Callahan. And I thought, well, I grabbed this off the pile. These are the old mass market paperbacks that I bought specifically for June on the Range. So I thought, great, I just had a good experience with an ace double. I will have an experience with another ace double. And last night, my experience with this ace double was explosive. It was explosive. Not because our hero in either of those stories deals with gunpowder or a Gatling gun or TNT. No, it was because the book exploded on me. The book fell apart. It fell into 1,000 pieces when I tried to read it. Unlike the previous ace double, this one fell into 1,000 pieces. It fell into confetti. So I didn't get to read any of those stories. I wasn't about to try and piece it together and put the pages back together. I'm not Indiana Jones. So I just gave it up. The thing completely fell apart, so I will save these two covers and put them in my journal, just so that as a memory of what used to be. But I realized once that happened, I laughed, had a good laugh when it happened last night, and then I thought, oh wait, but I'm going to be 2 reports for June on the Range down. So I figured I owed you something from the night's reading. So this is going to be another weird June on the Range. The first thing I want to talk about is this. Roman Britain by H. Scullard, the author of From the Gracchi to Nero. This is his heavily illustrated history of Rome's gradual colonization of the island of Britain, and then its flourishing there, and then its gradual leaving there. All sorts of native revolts, all sorts of trouble with the empire that caused elsewhere, that caused it to tighten its belt, caused possessions on the far peripheries of the empire to get little or no attention. And this is wonderful. I read it once before, but now I have a copy of my own. Roman Britain is a little pet favorite subject of mine underneath the heading of ancient Rome. And Scullard is wonderful at picking out. This is pretty much a comprehensive survey of all the basic stuff that they knew about Roman Britain 60 years ago when this was written. And that was a lot. Research is still ongoing, but that was a lot. And it's all in here, and it's wonderfully illustrated, everything you could possibly want. Pictures of the items that have been pulled out of the British farmland, floor plans of buildings that have been recovered, sketches of buildings and market squares and roads and walls and whatnot. But the thing I loved most about this book this time around from Scullard was his great job paying attention to later empires, to later emperors in Rome, the ones that were working up to leaving Rome, to leaving Roman Britain, just abandoning it, the ones leading up to that, the ones covered in such detail and in such interesting detail by Ammianus Marcellinus. Those periods of history, those long decades, that long century of neglect but not yet abandonment, was my favorite part of reading this time around. For, I guess, June on the Range? I guess. But the other book that I could talk to you about is closer to June on the Range. It actually has the word cowboy in the title. I just read it. I think this was a romance novel from last year. This is by Kira Jacobs. I don't think I've ever read anything by Kira Jacobs, and now I want to. This is Choosing the Montana Cowboy, the first book in her Miles of Montana series, which is not about distance. That is the name of a family, the Miles family in Montana. They are the owners and operators of the Flying J Ranch, which is very remote and very rustic and very picturesque, and they've run it forever and ever. We meet the Miles family, including the tough as nails grandparents, and we get to know that family mainly through the focus of Sam, one of the three Miles siblings. There's Sam, there's Nora, and there's Jackson. Jackson's a bit of the bad boy. Sam is more straight-laced, a little bit more conscientious, and made even more so by the fact that by the time this novel starts, he is a single dad. He has a young girl that he is taking care of. Hasn't really been all that impressed with any of the very little amount of dating that he's done. He's basically raising Madison on his own. When suddenly a woman enters his life, but in the worst possible way. The other main character in the book is named Natalie, and she is a development planner. So she works for a big corporation, and they decide they're going to build some kind of thing, a mall, a sprawling apartment complex, whatever it is. They decide they're going to build some sort of thing somewhere, all over the country. Natalie basically lives out of a suitcase, and she's pretty fed up with that. And her job is to go with a bunch of professionals and plan the project. Actually tell the bosses of the company, what is this going to entail? How long is it going to take? What's it going to cost? What's the lay of the land locally? So it's a fascinating thing. It's a fascinating job. In a different kind of novel, a novel about her job would have been very interesting. And it's done pretty well in this book. Kira Jacobs really doesn't miss much in terms of opportunities in this novel. But the company that Natalie works for, they have offered her a promotion, which would mean a lot less travel. It would mean she would get her life back. But there's one last job. There's always one last job. And it, unfortunately, is on a patch of land adjacent to the Flying J Ranch that is rented by the Flying J Ranch, but not owned by them. And the project is a big, glitzy resort within easy eyesight of some of the most rustic retreats of the Flying J Ranch. It would, in other words, ruin the aesthetic. And one of the properties on Sam's property, on his family's property, is a resort. So it wouldn't just ruin the aesthetic, it would also be a dire business competitor. It might put the Flying J out of business. Natalie cannot care about that. That is not her job. Her job is to assay the land and then go before the town council and tell them what's happening. It's a free country. If the owner of the land wants to sell it, they can. And Natalie's company can buy it, and then they can do whatever they want with it. And the Flying J Ranch can either adapt or go out of business and maybe sell their own land. And it's through that apparent conflict, apparently immovable conflict, that Natalie and Sam meet. And they meet, I won't say that they meet cute, they kind of do, but they immediately sense chemistry between themselves. And that chemistry is drastically enhanced when Natalie is invited to the family ranch to get to know the family, to get to have meals, to get to know the laid-back feel, the authentic feel of the place. She's not supposed to care about the projects that she manages, but she knows that what would be built on that space would not be authentic at all. It doesn't take long in the course of the book for her to want to side with Sam's family, even though she can't. They both have their own interests at stake, and Kira Jacobs does a really good job writing all that. I was totally involved right from the beginning. And then she ups the stakes. As the novel progresses, she ups the stakes in a way that I didn't see coming, which is ferrets. A rare kind of ferret is discovered on the land in question, which might be the way out for the Flying J Ranch. Make enough of a stink, get your state legislature involved in Montana, and probably you would not be able to get a permit to build on that land. Probably you would not. Obviously, this was written in the pre-modern era, in the pre-2025 era, where you certainly would, and where an extra bounty would be placed if you could personally kill all the endangered ferrets. But that isn't. This was written before then. This was written when humans ran the government. So it's possible that they could be a fatal blow to this development project, which would be a fatal blow to Natalie's hopes for a better job. So she's conflicted. On the one hand, she wants the endangered ferrets to stop this project from happening, to save not only Sam's family's property, but also her burgeoning relationship with Sam. But on the other hand, she's hoping that the accounts about these endangered ferrets is exaggerated, or something can be done, because then the project could happen. I was totally caught up in the book. It isn't Shakespeare, but I was totally caught up in it. I thought it was extremely well done. So I guess you could say that my June on the Range is still a success. This got cowboy in the title. Sam is not in any way a cowboy, not in any way. But romance novels tend to toss around that word, and I guess romance authors who live in the Connecticut suburbs think that anybody who lives in Montana is a cowboy. I don't know. Maybe they do. I'm going to get in on a technicality on this one. I can't with Roman Britain, but I can with this. I'll get in on a technicality to keep my June on the Range limping along, since this didn't work. And also, naturally, I don't think I'm the only person who would read this book and think it. I naturally want Nora's story, and I especially want Jackson's story. But also, while I was reading this, I was thinking, if The Miles of Montana is a hit, if readers like it, I would really like the grandparents' story. Kira Jacobs is not watching this channel, but write that novel. Write a historical novel, slightly historical. Write about when they were teenagers, 50 years ago. I would read that. Just from the bit that we get of them in this book, I would read that and probably very much enjoy it. But anyway, that's my kind of, sort of June on the Range for today. I will definitely be going with an ebook tonight for June on the Range, because I don't want another explosion on my hands. So I will definitely be going with an ebook, at least for now. I'm a little gun shy, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.